What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Extreme Lifestyle Living Podcast. Now, if you are caught up to date with the podcast, let's fucking go, because that means this episode is going to be super impactful compared to the last one I just dropped, which is on anxiety. And if you're not, you're watching them or listening to them sporadically, that is completely okay as well. Today's episode is going to be the same theme as last week's, which is talking about anxiety and how to deal with it. But today we're going to talk about depression and how to deal with it. I feel like depression and anxiety come hand in hand, and sometimes we get them intertwined and we really don't know how to manage them both. I personally have dealt with depression a lot more and still do to this day. I don't think I get anxiety nearly as much as I do as depression. Anxiety, I feel like, well, again, like if you're listening to the last episode, you'll understand what I mean by it. Once you understand how to operate with it, and understand like kind of who you are as a person with it and just all the different areas of your life that it affects you, I think you can really gain an incredible understanding and control of your anxiety on so many different fucking levels. So I think that's a very positive thing. But when it comes to depression, I think depression, at least in my opinion, in my experiences, has been one of those things that's been a lot harder to gain control over. Because, there's a saying that says anxiety is anxious for the future, and anxiety is being anxious for things to come, like, tomorrow, the rest of the day, in your future, and those things, which is true. A lot of them stem from stress and these things like that. And a little sprinkle of your past. But depression is the biggest thing where they say you live in the past. Depression comes from things that has happened before today, yesterday, last year, and all these different things. And I completely agree. And I think the biggest thing for me with depression is I just, from a very young age, battled it. And I was diagnosed with depression, not seasonal depression, but actual depressive symptoms and so many different avenues. And to the point that I was diagnosed with PTSD, diagnosed with depression, generalized anxiety, and OCD, stress-induced OCD. So when I know I'm feeling like my OCD acting up, which shows up in the form of being super stressed on just random things. It's not like needing to do certain things like the crazy anxiety or crazy OCD where it's like I gotta clean certain things or do certain things in a numerical order. That's a whole different side of OCD. But when I'm feeling super stressed on my routines and being super hard on myself of when I do certain things at certain times, that's when I know that everything is just too fucked up for me. And I got to take a step back, listen to my body, listen to what's stressing me out and recover. But depression is one of those things where it's, especially amongst men, it's a secret killer. It's a demotivator. It feels like it sucks the soul out of you. And a lot of the times depression comes from something that has happened before. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just have low frequency energy, and that's just a product of your environment for how you grew up. Or, sometimes you're just around negative people and you just never really had a lot of abundance, a lot of positivity, which is another conversation in itself. But for me personally, mine stemmed from just growing up the way that I did. I felt like there was always so much more to life to give. And when I started to grow up and realize certain avenues of life, let's say prime example, I used to beat myself up on this a lot. Why didn't I grow up with my mother? Why didn't I grow up with my father and have this picture perfect household in terms of them being married and, having this systemized lifestyle? And, once I got older and realized that has its own trauma and stress within it as well, I started to get more clearer on what kind of depression I was dealing with versus what I was identifying with. And, I did have some stuff that I'm not going to get into this podcast because I've shared it already on the podcast about how I grew up being in and out of foster care and just having different traumatic things happen to me, my brothers and family and things in that regard. But when things happen to you and you're feeling feel like the floor from underneath you is being swept away, feeling as if you have no control over anything in your life. Depression can be one of those things where you don't want to get out of bed. You don't have no motivation. You have no inspiration. You just feel like there's a heavy blanket on your back and you almost just feel like you just want to cuddle up and just hide away from life and run away from it. And the reason why I say it that way is because I think depression is a silent killer. Especially amongst men. It's one of those things that, it burns us. Why do you think the suicide rate amongst men is so high in the mid 40s? Is because, and even right now it's November. It's November, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's prostate cancer awareness month. There's so many things for men right now in the month. Is because it's depression comes from a lack of purpose almost. Why does certain things happen? Why does certain things got to happen and all these different things? And, I feel again, with anxiety, depression can be used as one of those things that can be a superpower if you understand how to use it. Because I believe that certain things that happen to you and the way that you experience life just gives you more more of a resume. I guess that's a good way to put it. It gives you more of a resume. Like I said in the last podcast, if you're a dull person and never had much experience or don't really think of many things, and there's nothing wrong with you if you don't experience these things, right? Like I always joke with my brother, like I was talking to his wife one day. My brother's been through a lot. He's been through a lot of just random trauma and stress. And I was talking to his wife one day, and she's like, I want him to go to a therapist and talk about these things. And my brother's always like, I don't give a fuck. I'm good. And it's funny because I truly do believe he's good. He just is one of those types of people that it's just water off his back. It doesn't matter to him. And, I wish I could adopt a little bit of that mindset like he did, but he was able to captivate and understand what he's been through and why, and just let it go. Some things are just what they are. And, when you do go through certain things in your life, it does mold you, it does shift you, it does change the state of your mind. And depression is one of those things that is like a cancer. It'll stay in your fucking mind and your soul and make you feel all these different things. And one of my best friends actually said to me that, when I started my self-help journey and my healing journey, a lot of it started from like understanding my depression, because depression makes you feel worthless. Anxiety is different. Like anxiety just is a whole different demon, if you will. But depression makes you almost question life. And I don't want to get too deep on it and, make it seem like too depressing. You know what I mean? I don't want this podcast to leave anybody in a depressive state, but you almost question life sometimes. Like, is life worth it? What's the purpose of me? What's the point of anything in life? And when you have had experiences that have really taken a lot out of you and have made you question certain things in life, sometimes it's hard to close those doors and stop questioning things. And one of my best friends said that was the hardest thing that was about me being in my self-help journey, was that I had to answer every question. And, at the end of the day, some things just happen because they happen, but what do we do with that? Okay, like sure, certain thing has happened to us in our past, or we grew up a certain way and our environment was a certain way, or like someone treated us a certain way. Like, what do we do with that information? And I think at the end of the day, you just understand who you are amongst it, and that's why I think that, the way that I explain anxiety, that if you can understand what anxiety is and how it affects you, it's the same as depression. If you can understand what affects you and why it affects you, what circumstances what cards were you dealt in life that make you feel certain things, then you can understand why your flare-ups of depression are going to be that much more. A big thing, like I said, and this is one of the first things I've had to deal with the depression, is your recovery protocols. If you're living life very stress high, like not sleeping regularly, you're not going to the gym regularly, you're not living a healthy lifestyle, making sure that you're in a good routine and systemized, then your depression is gonna chokehold you whenever it can. You know what I mean? And I know for me personally, if I don't have a good rhythm and routine, which is why I'm trying to ace my fucking sleep right now, is I'll feel those depressive symptoms. And I think that's a big thing with depression as well, because I don't want to be biased and say with anxiety, when you have a control of it, you're not going to experience it as much. But when you do, you'll understand it a little bit. It does, like, anxiety just doesn't hit you as hard sometimes. I mean, at least in my experiences. And like when it comes to depression, you're always going to have depressive symptoms. You're always going to feel some sort of negativity from something when you're feeling stressed out, or you're feeling tired, or you're going through a lot or a tough time, because from a physiological state, from a mental state, it's just going to relate to those times where you were really struggling or really having a hard time, whether it was with a partner, or whether it was the way that you grew up with your family, or whether it was just whatever traumatic event happened into your life, or whatever stress-induced time in your life that really gave you a hard time and really made you change who you are as a person to a degree with depression and experience it. Like, your body is just going to assume it's the worst, So once you get experience with it once, it's always hard to reroute the way that you handle it. No different than the anxiety. Your subconscious program is just going to take it, run with it, because it's what you understood before and it's what your experiences are. But I think the biggest thing with depression is always stems from you feel worthless. And that's what I mean about the whole chokehold that it puts you in. Because, let's say, for example, you battled anxiety, you battled depression, you changed your life. You got a better career. You started making a little bit more money where you could financially support yourself in a good manner. And again, it's not about being rich. It's about, just your finances are being allocated to ways that align with you and serve you. Let's say you had a shitty friend group, a shitty partner, or, shitty boundaries with your family, and you got better boundaries now and a better friend group and better support structure. And you started working on your fitness, you started going to the gym, you started eating a little bit better, you start feeling fucking great. But there's still those days, those mornings, those weeks where you deal with that deep battle inside where is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep these boundaries up? Am I right for keeping these boundaries up? Is it even worth it to go to the gym? Is it worth it to track my nutrition, all these different things? And I think that in itself is the hardest thing to adapt and deal with when it comes to depression, because it always makes you feel like you're questioning everything. And I think that's the thing that I struggle with the most, especially being at the level of life that I'm at now. All of it's a dream come true. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wrote it all down on paper that I wanted to be financially free, where I didn't work for anybody, but I could compensate for my life. And again, it's not about being millionaires. I still have debt. I still pay off all these different things. But it's again, like I don't have a boss. And for me to materialize that lifestyle, I never thought it was real. When I started working towards it, started seeing success, my depression was damn near gone because I was like, fuck, it's working. But then as soon as I started to hit certain levels of life, it started to creep back up because I'm like, well, now what's the point? It's like a dog chasing his tail. You don't ever expect to grab it. But then when you get it, it's like, then what's next? So that's why I think, when it comes to depression, it's not something that's ever going to go away 110%. You're going to have symptoms from it, just like anxiety. It's never going to go away 110%. It's going to have symptoms around it. And that's where you got to realize it's a superpower because it's going to make you remember who you are and what you've been through. And I think in a positive way, in a positive twist, once you have your subconscious programming programmed to keep you in momentum and understand how much growth you've had, which is, again, similar to anxiety. We're talking about recovery. We're talking about physical exertion and expression. We're talking about inward and emotional expression. Those things there, so obviously I said recovery is a big thing and making sure you have your day-to-day and week-to-week life in a good positive manner so you can stay in a good state for the most part. Another one is like your inward dialogue, your inward expression. Like, are you ingesting a bunch of information that's super depressing? Are you doom scrolling every day and then looking at other people's lives and what you think is better than what you currently have? Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at your glass half full, that little bit of extra water that could be poured in your glass, you're never going to fill it up because you're so fixated on the things you think you're never going to have. So are you doing gratitude lists? Are you reading and ingesting information that makes you feel good, whether it is learning about depression, whether it is learning about things that you've been through, whether it's just listening to things that make you feel positive and uplifted? Like a podcast of a group of people that you just genuinely like, because again, at the end of the day, you just got to occupy your time with things that make you feel your best. And if you're ingesting a bunch of information or not even articulating your internal dialogue, then it's never going to change. Just because you have more success today and you maybe aren't in certain situations that cause a lot of your depression doesn't mean you're out of the gate. And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to depression, that once you get your recovery, your day-to-day and week-to-week lifestyle into a good position that it's more positive than it used to be, the next is the internal healing. You got to do something for your internal dialogue, and don't get caught up like I did, thinking that there needs to be a purpose for everything. There's no, I was in a car accident and I got caught up for 10 years. I was in my car accident in 2011 and, up until 2023, it was 12, 13 years of me searching for purpose as to why was I in that car accident. I was practically pronounced dead on the scene. Why did I live? Why did I go through it? Why did I get left with pain? All these different things. Some things just fucking are what they are. Same thing if you grew up with a family that wasn't supportive or didn't have good structure and all those things. Sometimes it just is what it is. And the fact that you're aware of it shows that you have so much more power to do something with it, but we can't dwell on it any longer than it just deserves, because then you just give it more power, which is the little bit of a difference with anxiety. Because anxiety, once you understand it, then you can kind of understand how to move forward. Whereas depression, it kind of creeps up. It challenges your worthlessness. It makes you feel worthless. It challenges who you are as a person and your purpose on life. And when you're on the topic of purpose, you don't really know what the fuck to do. Because again, when you see success and you think that's your purpose, you're going to find a deeper rooted purpose as to who you are amongst it. And, that's why I use that example of me growing this life, because I was like, oh, I'll be happy when I don't have to worry about any boss, or I'll be happy when I'm not dealing with this level of anxiety or this level of depression or X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. And then it always creeps back up because, again, some things just are what they are. So I think the second thing for a fact with depression is making sure you have some type of protocol to make sure you're in control of it, which is why I'm such a firm believer of journaling, why I'm such a firm believer of practicing gratitude. Because again, if we focus on the glass half full and we're always looking on the things that we don't have remaining to fill that glass, we're always going to find things in our life to struggle with, whether it's a financial thing, whether it's one to be in a better shape, whether it's a freedom thing, whatever it is, you name it, you're going to find it. There's a quote that I love where it says, if you think you're wrong, you're right. If you think you're right, you're right. So same thing of this applies with depression. If you think you're worthless, you think you have no purpose, and you think shit is fucking trash, it's going to be fucking trash. So you have to have some type of internal dialogue and type of inward expression to help you mold these thoughts and mold these patterns to have more of a positive outlook, which is why I turn to faith. You don't have to become religious by any means, but I turn to faith because I love the daily devotions. I love reading the Bible. I love just getting my perspective challenged. I also have a bunch of other people's podcasts I listen to and watch sometimes to get different, I call it algorithms, different equations for me to think about life in this regard, right? And, you just got to have something that feels you a little bit inspired in terms of just changing and growing. It gives you that comfort. And again, it doesn't have to be something learning or self-development every single time. It can be something as simple as reading a fantasy book or playing a video game or something like that to just ingest information so you're just not stuck in your own brain. That's a big thing too. And I play a lot of Call of Duty. just for me to get off of life and hang with my friends and play the game and just like relax, you know? So that's another inward expression. A third thing is I do believe, you know, physical movement, health and fitness in that regard is always going to benefit anything, you know? So when you got depression, it's the same thing as like, you know, and it's harder for depression because when you have anxiety, it's like, you know, I feel like it's a little bit easier to just go for a walk and go for a workout and all these different things unless you're dealing with certain forms of it. But when it comes to depression and you're feeling that heavy blanket of not wanting to leave the house in all those regards, you just got to accept, you got to force yourself to do it. And that's why it's important for you to reflect on gratitude and how much growth you've already had. Because if you've already been through the absolute worst in your fucking life, whatever those times in your life may be, then maybe it's right now. You know, you got to show that, you got to prove to yourself and show to yourself that there is proof that you've continued to grow, that you've continued to surpass your own expectations. And I know for me, like the second I went to the gym and I know how, like, you don't ever have a bad workout. No workout is ever worse than not going. Do you know what I mean? There's no bad workout that's ever worse than not going to the gym. So for physical movement, it's not about the gym. It could be for a run. It could be any type of physical movement. It could be for a bike ride. It could be doing Pilates. It could be doing yoga, but some type of physical movement is mandatory for depression because it's a physical way that's attainable and it's measurable in front of you to show you that you're in control. And again, you can't let it run rampant and then you start judging yourself on that level of movement that you're doing. You just got to show that yourself that you're doing something to prove that you're in control. And anyone that I work with knows there's always two different sides of the story. There's high standards, 10 out of 10 standards that you want to have for the gym and your fitness goals in that regard, but the non-negotiable is the intentional movements. Doesn't matter if you go to the gym every single day. Doesn't matter if you track your macros or meal prep every single fucking day. But what matters is you put intention and effort behind these things so you can prove that you're in control. So same thing as anxiety. If you're dealing with depression and you're really questioning, like, what's the point of certain things? Those are the three variables right there that are going to help you stay in control of questioning the right things. Because I think it's healthy to question your purpose. Because again, at the end of the day, our time is limited on this planet. We want to be able to look back on our life and say, what did we do throughout our lives? You know what I mean? And how do you want to leave your kids? How do you want to leave your family? How do you want to leave your legacy and all those things? So if you didn't have anxiety or depression and deal with certain things and questioning life and purpose and all these different things, you would never, ever, ever in your life ever think about these things until it's too late. So why do you think midlife crisis is so high for not just men, but women as well? You know, most people have kids and buy a house and, you know, financially restrict themselves so much to so many different avenues in their life that they don't realize that they didn't live their life as full as they should have until they're like in their 40s or 50s and 60s. And that's usually when it's harder because being young and understanding it, and that's not to be biased with the age gaps, but, you know, just based on the studies and based on the research, if you're 50 years old, 9 times out of 10, you're in a career that you can't just change. 9 times out of 10, you get a family you're supporting. You can't just uproot your life and change it. You know, same things with other avenues of your life. You can't just change. You got a mortgage sometimes, car payments, all these different things. And that's a big reason why I moved to Mexico. I didn't have anything tying me down. I was in a lease. You know, I don't want to buy a house yet. I sold my car. I got my business and I got my gym bag. Like straight up, that's all I got in my MacBook. So as long as I got Wi-Fi, I'm good. I don't want to restrict myself to these things. So if you don't question your purpose and understand what it is, I think that's a really negative thing. And the sooner you can do it, the better you're going to be able to articulate where you want to take your life. And you just got to make sure it doesn't come the same as anxiety, come at the expense of your life. And don't think too much about it. Sometimes your purpose can just be, I want to be happy, content, and live my life unapologetically and feeling good every day. And that could be subjective to change as you grow. But again, if you want to attach it to a financial goal, do that until it comes at the expense of your life. If you want to attach that to a physical goal, do that until it comes at the expense of your life. If you want to attach that to a family goal and a career goal and all these different things, that's healthy. It's healthy to have these goals and these milestones because then you have purpose. Because then again, if you're doing your inward expression every day with your journal routine, your reflections each week and each month, you have somewhere you're moving along the lines of. So when you do have those seasons of depression where you do feel left and right and you don't feel good about yourself, you have a metric of measurement to look at it and compare it to. So I hope that makes sense. That's all I got on depression. The thing about depression and talking about it compared to anxiety, I feel like sometimes it can be a little bit harder to understand for me to kind of articulate it sometimes. And like, you know, I am kind of dealing with some of these symptoms right now. So even me sharing this episode, it's a little bit hard for me to kind of articulate it. So I feel like I ramble a little bit more than I would have liked to, but that's just me being real because I'm in the trenches of dealing with it with you guys. But I can guarantee you, if number one, you have a recovery protocol that helps you manage your stress, going to sleep the same time every day, waking up the same time every day, you know, having your daily, your weekly, your monthly habits and make sure you have an infrastructure to be in a good position, that's going to help you stay in the best position possible. Number two is if you have inward expression, whether it's journaling or reading or some type of ingestion of information to help your internal dialogue, that's going to help you. And the third one, which I think is the most important for depression because it's more tangible and you actually can get your hands on it, is working out and moving your body, because those things there is always going to help you just release some stress, which again is related to depression and those different things. But I hope you guys got some takeaways from this. I'm really excited to fucking release these episodes. I always love talking about mindset. I always love talking about depression, all these different things, because I feel like they're the most impactful for everybody, and I get the best feedback, and I get the most fucking fulfillment and joy of it. And me even doing this episode alone about depression has helped me heal my depression. So it's a double motherfucking whammy for me. But other than that, appreciate you guys' the time. Keep doing what you guys do best, which is lead from the motherfucking front, and let's keep locking it in.
I'm a man of God, but you bet me in that corner and I'll let it blow. I got time today, cause boy,